Part 9. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 81. 81 US Army. September 28 at 12:43 noon, east of Raccoon City, Waste Treatment Plant. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. A burst of intensive gunfire is constantly ringing out. Near the back door of the waste treatment plant, more than a dozen American soldiers with the logo of the Delta Force are desperately resisting the attack of a large number of B.O.Ws ahead. More than a dozen hunters kept roaring and rushing forward, and in the middle, three huge bald men stood out more conspicuously: the Tyrant T-103. The Delta Force soldiers fanned out, and countless bullets pelted the hunters and tyrants with little effect. Team A. Go to the high place on the left immediately and suppress the approaching zombies. Team A. Throw another wave of grenades. Team F. Break through the direction where the helicopter fell. Check if the E system is damaged. A commander shouted loudly, "Communications. Call the Echo Team 6 again and ask them to come over and join us immediately." Confluence. The well-trained soldiers of the Delta Force immediately changed their formation, threw a wave of 7 or 8 grenades, and set off a series of explosions. The hunters rushing over were immediately blown to pieces, and even one of the T-103 tyrants was knocked down by the explosion. But at least half of the hunters who were blown up climbed up again, and the tyrant who was blown down didn't suffer much damage. What's more deadly is that as the battle time dragged on, the zombies in the distance began to gradually surround them. There is a large group of zombies at 2 o'clock, moving here. The captain of Team A, who came to a high place to attack the zombies behind, said loudly, "Hansu, are you still okay?" The commander looked back at the closed iron gate of the waste treatment plant, and sternly shouted at a Chinese man standing in front of the gate. My ID is locked." Why, this man named Hansu is naturally the experimenter. He is holding an Umbrella Company ID card and swiping it constantly, but the iron gates, the red light is always flashing on the switch. He became more and more terrified. This ID was given to him by a silver experimenter named Holger Baker, who asked him to bring in the US military from the waste treatment plant. But why was this ID locked? Grass, mud, horse. Waste. Seeing Hansu's appearance, the commander roared angrily, made a decisive decision, and said loudly, "Give up the position here. Break out in the direction where the helicopter fell." "But what if the E system is destroyed during the fall?" a captain asked loudly. "Then we'll die here." The commander roared, and waved his hand violently. "Go." Swish. With a flash of the knife, the decayed head of a zombie fell down. This is the 7th zombie that Chinyan killed. He has already cleaned up the zombies that were attracted by the helicopter crash. There are more zombies moving here, but they are blocked by the collapsed houses and cannot come over for the time being. Chinyan looked at the thing that looked like a cannon dropped by the helicopter, and it was next to it. The shape of this cannon was very strange. The body of the cannon was thick, almost 2 meters in diameter, and there were a lot of wires densely covered on it. The gun barrel has a diameter of about 80 millimeters, and countless electromagnetic coils are wound on it. He subconsciously placed his hand on the cannon, silently scanning in his mind. Unable to scan, you have not obtained the right to control this item? What's the situation with this dominance? Chinyan looked around and found that the helicopter pilot was still alive. He just passed out. Okay, the good thing will be done to the end. Chinyan crawled over, unfastened the seat belt on the driver's body, dragged him out and put him aside to lean against a rock. "Are you okay, dude?" The driver moved, woke up, saw Chinyan, who had already changed into casual clothes, and said with some difficulty, "Are you a survivor here?" "Don't worry, I'm fine, just a little dizzy, just take a rest and I'll be fine." "Oh, then you take your time to rest." Chinyan patted his head, then turned around and came to the side of the cannon again, reading the scan silently. Unable to scan, there is an owner within a certain range of this item? This is all right? Chen Yuyan began to scold his mother in his heart, so he ran to the driver's side again, and a princess picked him up without saying a word, then ran away, put him on the ground, turned around and left. Driver? Chen Yuyan ignored him, turned around and came to the side of the cannon for the third time, reading and scanning silently. The scan is complete, and the data of the experimental electromagnetic gun has been entered into the infinite base database node. This product needs to be upgraded to level 2 in the manufacturing center to start building. Railgun. Finally a heavy weapon. Chen Yuyan was about to jump up happily. As for the level 2 manufacturing center, wait until you return to the world of Command and Conquer to think about it. Now he is like a little friend who went to the supermarket to buy Lego toys. Although the shopping cart is full of building blocks, he still has to go home to figure out how to put them together. Hey, brother, you put me on a sharp rock. The helicopter pilot on the other side had already begun to doubt life. I'm sorry, I'm just curious. When I saw that thing, Chen Yuyan hurried over. You don't need to throw me here if you are curious. The driver groped in his arms for a while, took out a flare gun and said, this thing is a secret equipment of the US military. Don't move around. I have to give it to you. Teammates. Also, move me somewhere, I feel like this stone is going to go in. Chen Yuyan quickly picked him up again, and found a flat place to put him down. The driver said very seriously, you can escape here, which shows that you are capable. Listen, after I fire the signal flare, it will definitely attract some monsters. You need to protect this thing from being destroyed, but don't fire it. With the flare, my teammates shouldn't be able to find me. I'm sorry for involving you in this trouble. After speaking, he raised his gun to the sky, and with a bang, a bright red ball of light rose into the air, and there was a burst of explosion. Almost at the same time, a wall on the other side was smashed open, and a group of soldiers in American uniforms rushed over. Chen Yuyan? Stevens. That's great, you're fine. I was worried that you'd be killed. An officer said loudly. The pilot was obviously stunned. I thought I deviated from the course after being hit by the rocket? No. The place where you fell was no more than 300 meters away from the intended location. By the way, what happened to the E-system? The officer laughed twice. I dropped it before it fell, so it should be fine. The driver pointed in another direction and said, also, this enthusiastic citizen saved me. Chen Yuyan showed a somewhat embarrassed smile, and introduced himself, my name is Chen Yuyan, and I used to do security work here. The officer patted him on the shoulder and said, thank you. We are the US Army Special Operations Force, and I am the commander, Captain Donald, and you can act with us later. But I am sorry that we need to complete the task first. By the way, where are you doing security? In the research center of Umbrella Corporation. Chen Yuyan replied directly. Umbrella Company? A trace of vigilance appeared on Donald's face. However, at this moment, an angry roar suddenly came from the other side. Immediately after a bang, Garcia rushed over with smoke and dust, his limbs were abnormally developed, and his eyes were shining red. Oops! It was my flare that attracted the monster. The driver Stevens yelled. Chen Yuyan just wants to give him a big hug now. Great job, buddy. Thank you for the 2,000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 82. 82 Electromagnetic Cannon. Brown. You take 2 people to check if the E-system can be used immediately. Others, deploy it immediately. Captain Donald shouted, and the soldiers of the Delta Force were also extremely elite. Garcia opened fire. Chen Yuyan's reaction was one step faster. He took out a police Remington M870 shotgun, fired 2 shots in a row, then turned around and hid behind the American soldiers. He has a very clear grasp of these details. Since he took off the U.S. uniform and pretended to be a citizen, he also discarded the new weapons he carried before, including MP-5 and Saiga-12 shotguns, and replaced them with one in the city. The Remington M870 that is more convenient to find. After Garcia rushed over, the scarlet eyes fixed on Chen, but Chen hid among the American soldiers, but no one knew that the monster was looking at him. Almost at the same time it crashed through the wall of a house, da-da-da-da-da. The powerful firepower of more than 30 American soldiers enveloped it in an instant, and countless bullets hit it, causing countless bloody flowers. Garcia couldn't bear it anymore. He put his hands in front of his face to protect his head, but was still beaten back again and again by the powerful impact of countless bullets. Finally it couldn't take it anymore. It jumped 3 or 4 meters high with a push of its legs, and climbed to the side on the wall. A large stone was pulled out and smashed down. But this kind of attack is completely useless to the Delta Force, and the bullets of the American soldiers are still pouring over. They don't need to worry about the consumption of ammunition at all. Anyway, the blockade area around Raccoon City was set up by the US military itself. If the B.O.W can't beat it, it can drop an electromagnetic gun over. Garcia roared angrily, but then the wall it was on was smashed by countless bullets, and it lost its grip and fell down with a plop. Several soldiers began to move forward, and the firepower became more intense. Garcia kept roaring, and its roar became more and more distorted, and its body began to swell abnormally. Sudden. With a crash, Garcia's chest cavity burst open, and ferocious teeth even grew out of the crack. Then, the lumen connecting the limbs on its body wriggled violently, and suddenly a large jet of black mucus spewed out from the chest cavity. The 2 closest soldiers were immediately covered in drenching. Wow! The 2 soldiers screamed loudly, seeing countless pustules growing on their bodies. Medical soldiers! Captain Donald shouted. Don't go there. The pustules on their bodies have become a source of infection. Chen Yuyan shouted. At this time, the screams of the 2 soldiers became weaker and weaker, and finally fell to the ground without moving. And Garcia is still constantly mutating under the fierce firepower of the US military. A large amount of mucus-like things are secreted from his body, and then quickly solidified, becoming a new mutated tissue, and its volume is getting bigger and bigger. Is the E-system still not ready? Donald roared. 10 seconds. Brown, who had previously adjusted the electromagnetic gun, replied loudly. Call me. Donald roared. Garcia's stature has now grown to a height of more than 3 meters, and the opening in his chest has mutated into a huge, hideous mouth with countless barbs and sharp teeth. However, his originally thick and abnormal limbs now appear short. All I saw was that the countless lumens on its body began to squirm violently again. Be careful, it sprays venom. Chen Yuyan reminded. Almost in the next second, boom. A bang. The lightning flashed by, and a big hole was punched out of Garcia's huge body in an instant. The huge inertia brought its remnant body to slam back, and it was stuck in the building behind together with the countless rotten meat that was blasted out before. Superior. The wall was knocked down, and countless stinky blood and remains sprinkled the entire room inside. It's not over yet. All I saw was that the small 4-story building behind Garcia began to collapse. It turned out that the cannon just now completely pierced the building. Not only this building, but also 2 or 3 buildings behind are also collapsing, and this cannon actually pierced through 4 buildings. Chen Yuyan's pupils constricted in an instant, and the power of the electromagnetic cannon was insane. This shot past, I am afraid that even the armor of the tank can be penetrated. Rest in place, put out the flames on the helicopter, and make sure the fuel tank is fine. Rescue some of the supplies on the plane, notify the headquarters, and let them airdrop another batch of ammunition. grenades, bazookas. I really want heavy firepower. Donald almost was pulling the communication soldier's ear and roaring loudly. Then he issued a series of instructions. Brown, let the E-system recharge. There are still a lot of B.O.W in the other direction. Team B, go and be vigilant. After finishing speaking, Donald came to Chen Yuyan and said coldly, now, let's talk about your affairs in detail. You must know that I don't trust you Orientals at all now. Chen Yuyan followed his gaze, only to realize that there was another shy Chinese man in the team. He was wearing a US military uniform, but there was no mark, and he shrank back, so he didn't notice it before. That guy claimed that he could lead us from the waste treatment plant to Umbrella's underground laboratory, and he brought us into this trap. You saw that monster just now? It's all a Umbrella conspiracy. This guy is a spy. Donald said loudly, still angry. Chen Yuyan sighed softly, buddy, why are you pretending to be cowardly in front of the American soldiers? Do you know without this function? And in this way, their vigilance will be greatly enhanced, which is very detrimental to themselves. But the good news is that this group of American soldiers firmly believed that Garcia was also one of the B.O.Ws who besieged them, so they didn't doubt themselves at all. Now Garcia, the follower who has been staring at him, has been killed, and the unexpected gain of electromagnetic gun technology, if it doesn't work, let them leave and run away. He took out a company work card from his pocket and handed it over. He didn't lie, the waste treatment plant does have an entrance and exit to enter the underground research institute, but if you want to go in, I suggest that your headquarters airdrop another batch of 3 defense combat uniforms. Come here. Donald took the work card, which had Chen Yuyan's photo and fingerprint verification on it, and clearly explained his place of work, the security director of the reception department of the Raccoon City Research Center of Umbrella Company. He frowned. Such an exquisite work ID is definitely not a crude imitation, that is to say, is the identity of the person in front of him real? It's just that another employee of Umbrella Company appeared in front of him. Is it a coincidence? Or conspiracy? In fact, this work permit is indeed real. For Chen Yuyan, it is enough to tell the company about this thing in the past. With the professional habit of being an undercover agent before, he is very concerned about hiding and disguising his identity, and he always has back UPS. Anyway, it doesn't matter if he has a work permit on him. And this identity is also carefully chosen by him. It was precisely because of his confidence in his ability in this area that he proposed a plan to bring Garcia to the US military. If it were someone else, he would become a prisoner of the US military if he was not careful, and he would be unable to do anything, just like the unlucky guy in front of him. But for Chen Yuyan, his 10-year undercover career was no joke, and it was not a big problem to fool these American soldiers. There is one more chapter today. In the new book period, please help us to vote. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 83. 83 Own Work. I work in the reception room as a security supervisor, and I have fought in Southeast Asia before. What I can tell you is that there is indeed a secret research institute in the basement of our research center. But I have never gone down. Often there are some scientists who come and go to our center, but the research center is so big, they all disappear after they come in, and they usually leave after a week or two. Chen Yuyan took out the lies he had already made up. I came to help the waste treatment plant last month because there were not enough people, and many people showed signs of virus infection. I heard that it was William Birkin's intensive experiments in the past 2 months that caused the experiment. The reason is that the waste material has greatly exceeded the processing rate of the waste treatment plant. As he spoke, he sighed. The epidemic broke out, and the executives who noticed the problem before that all ran away, and those of us who didn't know what was going on seemed to be abandoned by the company. Is there any smoke? I haven't touched this thing for days. I'm unlucky, I didn't find it anywhere, or it's stained with blood. Donald handed him a cigarette and lit it for him. Chen Yuyan quickly took it and took a deep breath. His movements and demeanor were exactly the same as that of a smoker who hadn't smoked for 2 days. Then do you know the root cause of this tragedy in Raccoon City? Donald asked after he finished smoking a cigarette. I didn't know at first, but these 2 days have connected things together, and I know some clues. The reason is that the virus leaked. A week ago, there was an explosion in the research center. A few days later, the virus spread. The way of transmission is water source. We only drank bottled water a month ago, so I escaped. Chen Yuyan shook his head. Give me another one. Donald handed over another cigarette and asked, you don't look scared at all? Chen Yuyan pointed to the corpse of a zombie on the ground and said, it's not a ghost, what am I afraid of? The security guards who escaped with me were afraid, and then they all died. As he spoke, he took another deep breath. Take a puff of cigarette. Then can you take us into the underground research institute? Donald asked. Protective clothing is needed. The aisle of the waste treatment plant is very dirty and contains all kinds of garbage. There may be a large amount of virus leaking inside. As he said, Chen Yuyan took out an ID card and handed it directly to Donald. This is the ID card of the general manager. He was the one who opened the door when we went to help the waste treatment plant, which is the door of the garbage loading and unloading port in front. But then he tried to bite me, and I shot him in the head. Donald was a little surprised that Chen Yuyan gave him the ID card so generously. It stands to reason that such a person shouldn't hide such a crucial thing, or charge a lot for it. He took the ID card, and he felt much better about Chen Yuyan in his heart. In his opinion, Chen Yuyan's frankness also dispelled a lot of doubts. Are you not worried about entering such a dangerous place with us? Donald took the initiative to hand Chen Yuyan a cigarette. The latter didn't smoke this time, but just stuck it behind his ear. Actually, I'm also curious about what it's like in the institute. Anyway, I've tried everywhere these days. If I can't escape, I might as well hang out with you. Don't underestimate me, I fought a lot with drug dealers back then. Fight? Chen Yuyan said with a chuckle. Captain. Those B.O.Ws are coming towards us? And those big guys? The soldiers who went to guard reported. Shoot. Bring them over and kill them with the E-system. Donald gave the order. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Chen Yuyan looked at himself. He had already torn off all the bandages before coming here. The wound bitten by the zombies at the power station before has healed under the self-healing ability of the tiberium crystal and the effect of the first aid spray. And different from Bertha's previous judgment, he hasn't been injected with T-virus neutralizer for several hours, but he is still healthy as before. Now he discovered that the increase in his physical fitness might really be related to the tiny amount of T-virus that entered his body through the bite of those zombies. Maybe it was really the tiberium component in the body that assimilated and devoured the T-virus. But that being said, Chen Yuyan didn't dare to inject himself with the T-virus directly. You must know that if it weren't for the zero file given to him by the system, he would never dare to use tiberium crystals, and no one can guarantee him the T-virus now. Let's talk about life with the four-eyed girl after escaping. Attention! Prepare to fight. The American soldiers in front shouted loudly. Everyone was ready to fight immediately, and Chen Yuyan also took a step forward, pointing the Remington M870 shotgun in the direction of the road ahead. That's where this group of soldiers came from. There was a large group of B.O.Ws attacking them before, and then they blew up a building and temporarily blocked it. Stevens, the former helicopter pilot, also picked up an M-16 assault rifle and joined the array. He also smiled at Chen Yuyan in a friendly, inexplicably ambiguous manner. This guy wouldn't have awakened some incredible skills just because he put him on a sharp rock just now. Chen Yuyan hurriedly turned her head to the side, not daring to meet his gaze. The E-system is fully charged. It can fire 4 more times. Brown, who controlled the electromagnetic gun, said loudly. You control the E-system to aim at those bald men. Don't worry about other monsters. Donald said. Boom. Among the pile of collapsed building ruins in the distance, there was a sudden explosion, and a broken wall was knocked down, followed by countless zombies rushing out. Hit. Donald ordered. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. More than 30 American soldiers immediately opened fire, and countless bullets poured out like rain. The bands of light pulled out by a large number of light bullets even joined together, forming a dead optical net. There are a lot of zombies and B.O.Ws rushing out from behind the ruins of the wall. Behind the countless zombies, there are also a large number of lickers crawling out along the wall, and hunters with rough skin and thick flesh also appear among the corpses. What is more conspicuous are the 3 shiny bald heads in the group of zombies. Tyrant T-103. These soldiers are the elites of the Delta Force, and their marksmanship is very precise, and the zombies fall like mowing grass. However, the hunters were not so easy to kill. They rushed over frantically, even though they were hit by hundreds of bullets, they did not fall down. And the 3 tyrants T-103 are even more terrifying. The military coats on them have bulletproof functions, and the grenades and other weapons of this group of soldiers have been used up in previous battles. Boom. The lightning flashed, and Brown controlled the electromagnetic gun to fire. Because the shells were so fast, almost at the same time as the sound of the cannon sounded, a bloody gap was instantly punched out in the middle of the corpses in front, as if it appeared out of thin air. And the shell also accurately hit a Tyrant T-103. The frightening thing is that even if it was hit by the electromagnetic cannon, it was only pierced with a big hole in its body. Compared with Garcia, who was directly torn into countless pieces by the powerful kinetic energy, his body strength was not at the same level at all. After the shot passed, the pressure on the soldiers was relieved a lot, but the good times didn't last long. Less than a minute later, those zombies and B.O.Ws who were knocked down by the shockwave of the electromagnetic artillery shells gathered again and began to charge again. Charging for 2 minutes. Brown roared. Hold it! Captain Donald cheered loudly. Chen Yuyan touched it and whispered in his ear, I can't stand it. We should move in the direction of the waste treatment plant. But the E-system can't move. Donald exclaimed. Forget about the E-system. With this rate of fire, those bald heads have already killed us before firing. When will the support from your headquarters arrive? Get back immediately after getting the protective clothing, and don't get entangled with those big bald heads. Chen Yuyan said. It's not your turn to command here. You can change to an assault rifle to help. Donald couldn't listen at all, and pushed Chen Yuyan and shouted. Thanks to 08A, the 100 starting point coins that were rewarded just for reading. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 84. 84 Retreat. The US soldiers are still firing continuously, and the zombies and B.O.W rushing from the front keep falling down, but they are still continuous. And what's even worse now is that zombies have also begun to break in from other directions. Zombies began to crawl over the rubble on the buildings that had been bombarded by electromagnetic guns before. The low growls continued in an endless stream. The US military had to allocate part of its manpower to defend against the zombies rushing from other directions. And what's even more deadly now is that the hunters rushing from the front are already approaching their position. These B.O.Ws mutated from lizards are like tanks. Their bodies covered with fine scales are invulnerable, and their long claws are full of poison. Although they are not moving fast, they are still approaching. Charging is complete. Fire the gun. Brown shouted and pressed the button. Boom. The lightning flashed again, another T-103 Tyrant's body was punched out by the electromagnetic gun, and he immediately lost all response and collapsed to the ground. But at this time, the T-103 Tyrant who rushed to the front had already rushed to the front of the US military positions. Panting heavily, it slammed its bowl-sized fist on a soldier, sending him flying several meters away, before hitting the stone on the other side with a bang. Spread. Scatter. Donald ordered loudly. It's too late. Withdraw. The exchange of fire here will only lead to more and more zombies. Chun Yuyan yelled angrily beside Donald, almost pulling his ear. Who still has grenades? Throw them all out. Donald said loudly. However, only 2 or 3 grenades were thrown out. Boom. 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 After a burst of explosions, the dense group of zombies was blown to a large area, but soon, most of the zombies got up again and continued to move forward. Seeing him like this, Chun Yuyan was furious, kicked him to the ground, gave him his ID card before snatching it from him, and shouted, "You want to die? I'm leaving." As he spoke, he fired and ran towards the other side. He didn't switch to an assault rifle, he still carried the Remington M870 shotgun. He didn't expect to do much damage to the thick-skinned hunters, he just used the powerful blocking effect of the shotgun to slow down the speed of the zombies and BOW. Donald also swooped over and grabbed Chun Yuyan's arm, shouting, "You can't go. You must come with us. Since you want to live. Then listen to me. I stayed in this hell for 3 days. 3 days, you understand? Give up this shitty system now and retreat immediately. Also, the supplies sent by your headquarters, when will you arrive?" Chun Yuyan was not polite, turned around and sprayed him with saliva. Just as the two were arguing endlessly, suddenly the sound of a helicopter engine came from the sky. I only saw a -60 helicopter flying over with a huge metal box at low altitude, and at the same time there was a call from the pilot, "This is Flying Eagle 3. The goods you want have arrived." Where did I leave them? Direction. Chun Yuyan grabbed the communicator of the previous driver Stevens and put it on his head, and asked loudly, "How do you see the enemy situation around us from the sky?" To be honest, I'm not optimistic. There is a large group of zombies on the west side of you. I don't think you want to hear the number I estimated. The pilot looked down at the endless group of corpses in the west from the air, and said. Donald was about to speak, but was slapped aside by Chun Yuyan. He continued, "We have to go to the factory on the east side now. Listen, your plane is requisitioned by us now. I need you to throw the supplies in the gate of the factory. Then land the helicopter here to block the approaching zombies. We will cover you to escape. The headquarters ordered us not to land, so as not to cause the spread of infection." The pilot hesitated, "And who are you? Please check the serial number." Chun Yuyan pulled Donald up again and said, "Give the order. This is the only way. Remember, survival is the most important thing." Donald stared into Chun Yuyan's eyes, finally made up his mind, and said loudly, "I am Captain Donald Bynes, commander of the Special Operations Force. Do as the man said just now. This is an order. Flying Eagle number 3 understands that there are 2 other members of our crew. We didn't come down to die. I hope you can prepare well." The pilot said. "Then act." Chun Yuyan pointed to the half-collapsed building next to him and said loudly, "Go upstairs. Be careful of lickers. Go. Retreat." Donald no longer hesitated, and immediately called everyone to run towards the building. And the helicopter in the sky also turned to the direction of the waste treatment plant to drop supplies. American soldiers entered the building one after another, climbed to the second and third floors, and then jumped to another low building in front to avoid the entanglement of zombies. They moved forward alternately, covering each other, and everything seemed to be in order. But there are more and more B.O.Ws rushing over. The only remaining T-103 Tyrant is killing it. It punched one by one, and all the American soldiers around were thrown into the air. The people who were hit were either broken, or they were beaten into the crowd of zombies and dismembered by countless zombies. A hunter has been hit by countless bullets, most of the scales on his body are peeled off, and blue blood is flowing all over his body, but it still inserts its sharp claws into the body of a soldier before dying. Chen Yuyan stayed behind, waiting for the other soldiers to leave before he greeted Donald, "You go up first." Donald took a deep look at him, turned around and climbed up the broken stairs without saying much. However, this crumbling staircase had been loosened after being trampled by more than a dozen US troops, and suddenly collapsed with a bang. At this moment, Chen Yuyan caught him and pushed him up hard. Donald grabbed the rock above and climbed up. He hurriedly turned his head and stretched out his hands and shouted, "Come up quickly. I'll pull you." "It's too late. You go first, I'll come to you." Chen Yuyan looked at the zombie that had rushed in front of him, shouted, turned his head and ran out through the window on the other side. The helicopter in the sky had already dropped the supply box to the waste treatment plant, and then turned around and flew towards the battlefield here. Donald immediately assigned some soldiers to sort out the supplies, and another part of the soldiers reset the defense line at the intersection. The huge body of the A-60 helicopter landed sideways on the road, and the two pilots jumped off directly to join the ranks of the US military. The group of zombies had already rushed up, and everyone began to fight and retreat, but Donald kept staring at the back. Suddenly, his face brightened, and he saw only the second floor of the building on the other side, and Chen Yuyan kicked open the window, jumped down. "Come here. Let's go." Donald hurried up to greet him. "The helicopter still can't stop those zombies." Another soldier pointed at the zombies rushing around the helicopter. "Just play an RPG." Chen Yuyan yelled as he ran over. "Thanks for the 100 starting point coins rewarded by the Lonely Soul Walker. All Heavens Unlimited Base." Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 85. 85 The Final Ball. Boom. The A-60 Nighthawk helicopter that landed on the ground was accurately hit by a rocket on the fuel tank, and countless aviation fuels were killed, causing an extremely violent explosion, and the road was covered in flames. At this time, Chen Yuyan and the rest of the dozen or so American soldiers had changed into the 3 defense combat uniforms dropped from the air, and all of them had changed their equipment. The so-called 3 defenses in the military refer to anti-nuclear radiation, anti-biological weapons, and anti-chemical weapons. However, compared to the previous U.S. combat uniforms, the U.S. military's combat uniforms are much bloated, and obviously they can only be found by improvising. They also took the M72 low rocket launcher dropped from the sky, a large number of M-67 grenades, the M-249 squad machine gun, the MM-1 individual grenade launcher, and even a MK-19 automatic grenade launcher. It seems that Donald's hysterical use of heavy weapons in the communication before is also effective. The US military is also not polite at all. "You want to be black and thick? Well, it's enough to keep you full." Insane, coupled with deep pockets, Chen Yuyan gave the following judgment. He quickly ran to the door and swiped his ID card to open the door of the garbage loading and unloading port behind the waste treatment plant. The U.S. has the highest authority within the umbrella company, and it is natural that there is no disadvantage in the territory of these companies. At this moment, suddenly the burning wreckage of the helicopter exploded and made a loud noise. Immediately afterwards, the entire wreckage was split in two. In that sea of flames, a huge figure stepped out. A big bald head. Tyrant, T-103. But this tyrant has completely changed. The bulletproof army coat on it has been destroyed, and without the restraint of the army code, the T-virus in its body began to mutate violently. Now this tyrant is a whole circle bigger than before, and the muscles made of mutated tissues on his body are like huge rocks. Moreover, the heart on its chest grew outside again, and it was still shining with an ominous red light. During the constant flickering and beating, the red light began to spread from the heart to the surroundings. What's even more frightening is that the hands of this tyrant have grown rapidly, becoming sharp claws half a meter long. Quick! Come in! Chen Yuyan yelled, walked over by himself, picked up the Mk-19 automatic grenade launcher, and fired fiercely at that side. Boom boom boom. The 40mm caliber high explosive bombs were fired continuously, the sound of explosions was endless, and the flames of the explosions were almost connected. The powerful firepower prevented the T-103 tyrant who had lost his restraint from being stored. Seeing that Chen Yuyan picked up the Mk-19 weighing tens of kilograms and opened fire by himself, Donald was dumbfounded, but he still reacted and called the American soldiers to enter the waste treatment plant. After Chen Yuyan fired the entire box of 32 grenades, he threw the bulky weapon aside, then jumped into the processing plant, and pressed the button to close the gate. And the mutated T-103 tyrant over there has stood up again and rushed towards him quickly. At the moment the door closed, only a loud bang was heard. The tyrant slammed into it hard, and there were even some dents on the heavy metal door. At 22:15 on the evening of September 28, Raccoon City, on the hill near the waste treatment plant, Holger Beck stood with Nikolai Genoviev and Albert Wesker, but now there was a hint of sullenness on his face. The group of American troops was not killed. Nikolai Genoviev said gloomily. And they killed my toys. They also opened the back door of the waste treatment plant. I should have locked Hansu's authority. Holger Beck's tone was equally gloomy. Bei how? Who is it? The back door opened by the authority? Sorry, the waste treatment plant and the underground research institute are within the authority of the Red Queen, so I can't check the relevant information. A rigid female voice came from his terminal. If that group of US troops enters the underground research institute, there is a great possibility that we will not be able to obtain the host computer of the research institute. Without this thing, we can't explain it to HCF. Albert Wesker said coldly. I have a good tool, and she has sneaked into the research institute. Let's see if she can play a role. Ida Wang. Holger Beck snorted coldly. The institute is very lively now, and she can't afford to provoke most of the forces in it. U.S. Echo 6, William Birkin, which one is that? Can she handle it? Hearing Holger Beck revealing Ada Wang's identity, a strange red light flashed in Wesker's eyes, and then he stopped talking. Humph. Holger Beck snorted coldly, and the anger in his heart began to erupt gradually. Like the other experimenters, he also had a noose around his neck. Don't look at him entering the top management of Umbrella Corporation, but the system has dug a big hole for him. The current top director of Umbrella Corporation, Oswell E. Spencer, wants to kill him. Because he has some secrets that he shouldn't know, such as how Spencer abetted Wesker and William Birkin to murder another company director, James Marcus, 10 years ago. Oswell E. Spencer regards Holger Beck as the remnant of Marcus's faction. In order to control the entire Umbrella company alone, he must be eliminated first and then quickly. The system will not allow any experimenter who enters the world to complete the task easily, but will arrange different identities according to their strength and tendency, but the ultimate goal is only one, to involve all experimenters in this world. Come in the storm. Therefore, if Holger Baker wants to survive, he must obtain the mainframe of the Underground Research Institute, which stores the precious actual combat data collected by cameras all over the city after the Raccoon City incident broke out. Only in this way can he please the mysterious organization H.C.F. and get shelter from them so that Spencer can't kill himself. Swish. Swish. A few undetectable cold lights flashed, and 6 sharp scalpels appeared between Holger Beck's fingers, 3 in his left hand and 3 in his right hand. There was no collision. It seems that I have to go to the institute myself. Holger Beck said, let's go. However, Nikolai and Wesker did not follow, they just looked at Holger Beck coldly. I have my own plan. Goodbye, Holger. Good luck. Nikolai sneered, turned and left. Wesker also didn't say a word, there was no expression on his stern face, he also turned and left. The two of them were always on guard when they left, and didn't give Holger Beck any room to sneak up. Holger Beck was silent, and he didn't take any action to kill these two traitors in his opinion. Nikolai, Wesker, Hank the god of death in U.S.S, Chris from S.T.A.R.S, Leon and Jill who are still growing up, and Alexia Ashford who has not woken up, these people both represent the world's top personal combat power, making him, a strong player in the Silver Group, have to be afraid. Delta Task Force, this is the Echo 6 team, we met a group of survivors, led by a man named Yao Xiong, and Jill Valentine, a member of the former Raccoon City Special Operations Team S.T.A.R.S, is now with them. Enter the Raccoon City Police Department. The comms echoed in the air. This is the Delta Task Force. We also met a former employee of Umbrella Corporation. With his help, we have entered the waste treatment plant. Our goal is the Underground Research Institute of Umbrella Corporation. Received by Echo 6, it is said that there is also a secret passage leading to the Underground Research Institute in the police station. We are tracking Umbrella's elite unit USS. They seem to have hijacked a group of survivors. The situation is a bit troublesome, and we meet at the Research Institute. Understood, Research NC. This is the U.S.S Alpha Squad, please answer. U.S.S Alpha Squad, Hank is calling, please answer. The incident in Raccoon City must be brought under control. Let the experts start to study how this strange virus reacts under high temperature and nuclear radiation. Your Excellency, do you want to? You are right. If the spread of the virus cannot be controlled, then I will authorize the launch of a nuclear bomb on Raccoon City. May future generations forgive us. Thank you TEAS fans for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 86. 86 Two Battlefields. Chun Yuyan and this group of U.S. troops who called themselves the Delta Special Forces walked in the passageway with 1 foot high and 1 foot low. This place was like a sewer, with sticky black mud under their feet, and all kinds of biochemical waste scattered everywhere around them. You can even see some mutated stumps floating in it. Even through the gas mask, it seems that the stench inside can be smelled. These things. You'd better not tell me that Umbrella Company is conducting human experiments. Donald's face was livid, and he yelled at Chun Yuyan with anger. You should ask the researchers here this question, although they should all have died inside. Chun Yuyan said in a very serious tone. But Umbrella is still there. Donald's tone became low. What do you think should be done to destroy Umbrella Company? Chun Yuyan asked suddenly. Of course it is to investigate the root cause of all this and find evidence. Take Umbrella to the Supreme Court. Donald said. Chun Yuyan shook his head and said, you can only destroy Umbrella Corporation itself, but there will still be more Umbrella Corporation standing up. Donald frowned, what do you want to say? This kind of virus that has spread throughout Raccoon City, and those B.O.Ws that appeared before, what do you think other companies will do after they get it? What will the US government do after they get it? Chun Yuyan asked rhetorically, this is an invincible BOW. As long as it has a large scale, an army can be easily wiped out, let alone a virus that turns people into zombies. Donald was not an idiot either. He fell silent when he heard this, and the other American soldiers fell silent when they heard their conversation in the communication. So, we must find the database in the research institute. Then divide the data in it into two categories, one is experimental data, and the other is records that can be used to testify against umbrella company. Chen Yuyan said, hand in the records, and the experimental data, all will be destroyed. Donald took another deep look at Chen Yuyan and said, but these data may have been transferred. Chen Yuyan shook his head and said, I am the security guard of the office building on the ground of the research institute, and I know it. There was an explosion a week ago, and then the whole research institute was blocked, and no one came out from it. And the whole research institute, all of the internet was cut off, and a day later, the entire Raccoon City was also cut off from the internet. Phone, internet, telegram, nothing can be sent out. You mean? As long as we find the mainframe, then we can really stop the outflow of these experimental data? Donald has now completely believed in Chen Yuyan. Because in his opinion, no matter what Chen Yuyan is planning, he is doing good deeds. On the point of destroying the experimental data, he couldn't see any possibility of Chen Yuyan seeking personal gain. This made him respect Chen Yuyan in awe. Of course, he also didn't know the existence of the infinite base. Along the way, from time to time, some zombies would climb up from the mud. These zombies were swollen and rotten from the mud, and the swollen skin drooped heavily, and even many places were torn. These zombies moved more slowly than ordinary zombies, and were easily dealt with by American soldiers. Under the guidance of Chen Yuyan, everyone came all the way to a huge factory building, which was covered with iron pipes everywhere, and there were several pools for processing biochemical waste. Because there was no maintenance after the accident, many equipment and pipelines here are now leaking. They walked on the rusted iron passage, the surrounding lights were dim, and some green liquid dripped from the pipe above the head from time to time, making people feel uncomfortable. If it weren't for the protective clothing, maybe we wouldn't dare to come in at all? A soldier whispered. Even if you come in, it may become like this within a few steps. Another soldier pointed to a headshot zombie on the ground. Coming to a loading and unloading platform, Chen Yuyan said, we came here last time to transport biochemical waste with these carts. We don't know the way further on, but their office should be nearby, let's look for it. He said naturally know what to say, how to say it, and to what extent. When Chen Yuyan was leading the group of American soldiers to search for a way in the sewer of the waste treatment plant, a fierce firefight broke out in the secret passage from the Raccoon City Underground Research Institute to the police station. The U.S. Army's Echo No. 6 team clung to the U.S.S and pursued closely. The configuration of the Echo No. 6 team is actually very similar to that of the USS. There are also assignments of snipers, field doctors, blasters, and firemen. They are also elites drawn from various units of the U.S. military, and they can also be called the King of Soldiers. After they entered Raccoon City, Nikolai Genovayev contacted them, told them the existence of U.S.S, and told them that U.S.S was here to destroy the evidence, and they must be killed. That's why they chased after the U.S.S, and successfully caught their tracks after the U.S.S destroyed the power station. After U.S.S entered the police station, the No. 6 team turned around and rushed to exchange fire with them again, but this time they found that U.S.S was also with a group of survivors, and there were very powerful people among them. Caroline Floyd, the best in the Echo 6, had a close fight with Victor, but was defeated by Ling Xiao, who rushed out from a diagonal stab, and his arm was cut with a deep bone. The wound. They had to retreat temporarily. At this time, the Echo No. 6 team ran into the group of experimenters who escaped from the power station led by Jill and Yao Xiong, who had just entered the police station. Most of these people were able to escape from the power station, and most of these people had extraordinary skills. Coupled with Jill Valentine's status as a member of S.T.A.R.S, The two sides hit it off and immediately joined forces to pursue the U.S.S together. Now there are 20 to 30 people on both sides, fighting all the way. The U.S.S is fighting and retreating to the research institute. In fact, it's not that they admit cowardice, but that the survivors are unwilling to confront the US military, and they are also very afraid. They were unwilling to do this, and Ling Xiao was also unwilling. If she was asked to kill zombies, she would go forward bravely, but if she was asked to kill the US military, she would release all kinds of water. In fact, when she attacked Caroline Floyd before, she was very sure of killing her, but she withdrew her strength and only scratched the opponent's arm. There was nothing Looper could do about this matter, and she was unwilling to turn against sisters Ling Xiao, because she had to rely on their strength. At this time, in fact, Looper missed Chen Yuyan very much in his heart. If Zero is here, he can definitely eat these two people to death. Rupier couldn't help but think so in his heart. At this moment, a survivor here suddenly shouted, "Why do you want us to be an enemy of the US army? What are you trying to do?" "I'm quitting." After he finished speaking, he turned and ran. Looper's expression froze, and he raised his gun to kill him, but at this moment, the sword flashed. The MP-5 in her hand was instantly split into two. It was Ling Yu who drew the sword. Although she is still a little pale now, she has recovered from the T-virus infection. "Take these people away. This is our most basic agreement," Ling Yu said coldly. "Do you want to die?" Looper snapped out his pistol and pointed it at Ling Yu's head. "Killing us won't do you any good." Ling Yu didn't forget the chronic virus injected into their bodies, so she didn't say anything dead. Seeing their confrontation, the survivors yelled, turned around and ran away. Ling Xiao looked at the survivors, and suddenly made a move. The sword was like lightning, and the sword cut open the pipe above the head. Hot water vapor burst out immediately, and countless smoke rose up, temporarily separating the two sides of the exchange of fire. She gave Looper a cold look and said, "If you want to continue working together, follow us." After speaking, she turned around with Ling Yu, quickly ran to the survivors, reorganized them, and then ran towards the depths of the research institute. "We should kill them," said the ghost coldly. "If they choose to die, I'm afraid those two sisters will pose a fatal threat to us," Victor said. "Then let's go our separate ways. Regardless of them, we will act on our own," Beltway said loudly. At this time, Lei Chen, who had never had a sense of existence, finally found a chance. He jumped out and said loudly, "Yes. We should leave immediately. Ignore the pair of sisters. They are the Holy Mother whore. I can take you to find the Research Institute underground train, and then you can escape. If we leave, it will be very difficult for us to fight against that group of US troops. In addition, there are two super monsters injected with the G virus here, and we will be completely passive." The plan to form an alliance with those two sisters was proposed by Chen Yuyan. "There should be his plan, and we should follow." Four Eyes said. "That guy is dead. Why are you still thinking about him?" Lei Chen blurted out, but immediately found that the surrounding U.S.S members were staring at him coldly, and hurriedly lowered his head and dared not speak. Bertha also said, "Don't forget there are things that the company asked us to get. If we can't get the database, we can't get the money. We may even be hunted down by the company." Looper pondered for a moment, then asked Lei Chen, "You said you knew about the underground train, but even our authority didn't know there was a train, so where is the exact location?" Lei Chen hesitated for a while and said, "I only know the approximate location, but..." Looper immediately interrupted him and said, "Okay. Let's keep up with Ling Xiao's sisters. At least now we can still use their strength, and then try to avoid the group of US troops and not exchange fire with them. Find the research institute first. Let's talk about the database host." After the discussion was made, The U.S.S members immediately took their captives, Police Chief Brian Irons and Rebecca, and chased them in the direction of Sister Ling Xiao. At this moment, suddenly there was a loud noise from the wall next to it, and then it was smashed into a big hole. All I saw was a huge figure rushing out. Impressively, William Birkin. I can only see that its body has mutated again compared to the last time. There are more and more mutated tissues on its body, and its figure is getting bigger and bigger. William Birkin's human head had been squeezed aside and wrapped up by the mutated tissue, almost indistinguishable. Where the original neck was, a new head grew, which was extremely hideous. And its right hand mutated even bigger, and the huge pupil on the shoulder that was bigger than the head was staring at them. Umbrella. From William Birkin's mouth, there was a roar that was twisted to the extreme, like a beast. Thanks to 08A and book friend 201901190816103343 for the reward of 100 starting coins. 3200 word chapter, speed up the progress, increase the amount of updates, and strive to end Resident Evil as soon as possible, return to Command and Conquer, and start base construction. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 87. 87 Two Monsters. Seeing the terrifying mutant monster in front of him, Brian Elon panicked and shouted loudly, "What kind of monster is this? What kind of monster? Run! Run! William Birkin. It's here to find its daughter Shirley Birkin." "But why did it rush at us?" Lei Chen also yelled. "Shut up! Get out of here first." Looper slapped the chubby Irons on the face, almost blowing the oil off his face. Immediately, Irons was obedient and dared not speak. He had seen the power of the U.S.S before, and now he dared not even fart. And other members of the U.S.S have opened fire. They had encountered William Birkin in the research institute a week ago, and they didn't panic too much now. Countless bullets roared and hit the huge animal on its right shoulder. On the eyeballs. Roar. Umbrella. William Birkin let out a terrible roar. He raised his huge right paw to block his shoulder, and rushed straight like a tank. The bullets all hit its right paw, embedded in the dense mutated muscle, and did not cause too much damage. Ordinary firearms couldn't stop it at all. Seeing that it was about to charge in front of everyone, Beltway roared and jumped on it. He slammed into William Birkin like a bison, and knocked him to a standstill. But William Birkin immediately raised his right paw and grabbed him. However, at this moment, two sword lights suddenly flashed, one on the left and one on the right. It turned out that Sister Ling Xiao had come back from the kill again. I only saw Ling Xiao's sword coming out like the wind, piercing William Birkin's right paw with a sword. And the long sword in Ling Yu's hand was like a spirit snake, swimming along the ground, and slashed fiercely at its ankle. William Birkin's current state was still a little top-heavy, his body shook suddenly, and he squatted and knelt on the ground. At the same time, Ling Xiao grabbed Beltway by the collar and pulled him back. Beltway was not a reckless man who didn't know anything, and he quickly took the opportunity to distance himself from William Birkin. "Run! Get away from it!" Beltway yelled. At this time, everyone saw William's chest, and they didn't know when Beltway had placed a bomb. It was C4. Boom! A huge explosion was set off immediately, and the platform William was on was blown up immediately, and it roared and fell to the floor below. And this burst of explosions completely separated everyone in the U.S.S from the Echo 6 group. Ling Xiao stared at Looper with sharp eyes, and said word by word, "I promised to help you, but I will never help you to kill. I think you also want to escape from here. Under this premise, we only then can we continue to cooperate. Find the database host of the Research Institute and take it away. This is our task. If you don't want to help us complete this task, then you can go with the virus on your body." Looper also confronted and said sharply. Ling Xiao snorted coldly, thought for a while and said, help you find the database host, and find the exit to leave Raccoon City together. But we will definitely not take action against the US military. Deal? Looper said coldly. At this moment, a voice with serious noise suddenly came from the U.S.S call channel. ZI, this is ZI Alpha Team, Hank. ZI, please answer if you receive it. Looper's expression changed, and he quickly said, this is the U.S.S Delta Team. Alpha Team, is that you? ZI, to be precise, I should be the only one left in the Alpha Team now. Hank's deep voice came, I have obtained a sample of the G virus, and now I need a way to retreat. Where are you now? Rupier asked. It should be in the sewer underground of ZI Research Institute. Now we are also in the institute, and we are looking for the database host here. Let's meet first. Looper said. Hank was silent for a while, and then said, the request is denied. I am carrying a mission-critical item in my hand, a sample of the G virus. I need to send the item out of Raccoon City immediately, and then organize support for you. The call is over. Wait a minute. Four Eyes suddenly said in the communication, Captain Hank, one of our team members, 0, he may be entering the research institute through the waste treatment plant, and may be closer to your location. I hope you can find him. I will adapt and evaluate the specific situation, but my first goal is to complete the task and bring out the G virus sample. Alpha Team, Hank out. Beltway was a little surprised. How did he survive in the sewer of the institute for a week? Looper said indifferently, before joining Umbrella Company, he has experienced countless life and death on several of the most dangerous battlefields in the world. Even I only know the tip of the iceberg of his information. He used to seem to be a member of the British 22nd Special Air Service SAS, but I can confirm that even if we all die, he will survive. At the same time, under the waste disposal channel of the institute, Chen Yuyan was fiddling in front of a voltage device, but no matter what he did, he couldn't restart the power here. In the darkness, there were low growls from time to time, which added a sense of fear to this place. Like other places, in the event of a sudden accident, the devices here will trip and cut off the power to prevent the disaster from spreading. Although I don't know who made this rule, anyway, Who of you will play this thing, son? Chen Yuyan was accidentally shocked, and immediately kicked the machine angrily. Pilot Stevens said weakly, I think I can try it. Usually when my plane breaks down, I fix it myself. Then why didn't you say it earlier? I saw you walking over excitedly and starting to fiddle with it, I thought you knew. Go over to work. Chen Yuyan pretended to be furious, and kicked him over. This kind of joke also eased the heavy atmosphere. Along the way, he has completely dispelled all the doubts that this group of American soldiers had about him, and even got along with them. Compared with Han Su, who has been reduced to a spy and a prisoner and is still handcuffed, the treatment is not a little better. With a click, the power was turned on, and the surrounding factory area was immediately illuminated, and the power supply was restored in the office where they were located. Immediately, an American soldier who was proficient in computers walked over to check whether there was any relevant information on the office computer. Check to see if there are maintenance records and instructions. There should be a map of this place. Chen Yuyan reminded. This place is like a maze. Only when I came here did I realize how many things Umbrella Company is hiding in the dark. Donald shook his head and said. Don't talk about you, I've worked here for so long, and it's only last week that I realized that the company is not just selling medicine. Chen Yuyan also said with emotion. Your skills are not even worse than ours. You know, there are all Delta Special Forces here. Where did you develop your skills? Donald asked. I've dealt with drug dealers in Southeast Asia for 10 years, Chen Yuyan's tone turned a bit vicissitudes. So you're an anti-narcotics policeman? Police. Haha, Chen Yuyan smiled wryly, my biggest dream in this life is to be an upright policeman. Unfortunately, I have never been, I am just an informant. Donald patted him on the shoulder and sighed, oh, I understand. Our troops have also gone to Colombia to participate in anti-drug operations before, I have seen what those places are like. People can't survive in it. Only beasts can survive, Chen Yuyan nodded, turned around and didn't want to talk about this topic again. At this time, the soldier who was searching on the computer suddenly slapped the table and said, I found it. There is a map of the waste disposal area in the computer. We should. Boom. There was a loud noise in the distance, and through the light, a huge figure could be seen approaching the image, obviously attracted by the light here. Should go that way, shouldn't it? Chen Yuyan pointed to that side and said. The soldier nodded blankly. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thanks to Huazhang Xiadian for the reward of 200 starting coins. Thanks for just reading, book friend 201709161357347336 rewarded 100 starting point coins. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 88. 88 The Murderer in the Darkness. More than a dozen tactical flashlights shone at the huge black shadow at the same time, only to see an extremely distorted monster appearing in front of everyone under the light of the flashlights. One hand of this monster mutated into a huge hammer-like object, and its upper body was extremely bloated, almost turning into a mountain of meat, and a third hand grew out from the shoulder behind it. However, the area below its waist was still the same size as a normal person, and it was completely unable to support the huge weight of its body. The remaining vertebrae were directly crushed, and its legs drooped like rags. Get ready to fight? Seeing this extremely disgusting monster, Donald shouted, and all the soldiers immediately got ready to fight. A rocket was launched instantly, and the tail flame behind it was extremely bright in the darkness. Boom! A violent explosion. And before the smoke from the explosion dissipated, another two. Boom! 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 The continuous explosions knocked the monster back again and again, and the warhead of the high-explosive rocket with a time-delayed fuse exploded after penetrating into the monster's body, causing countless flesh and blood to splatter all over the sky. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Everyone fired at once, a large number of bullets rained down, and there were two powerful M-249 squad machine guns among them. After getting a lot of supplies just now, this US Army has two M249 squad machine guns, 4 Mk-72 LA anti-tank rocket launchers, and 2 MM-1 grenade launchers. If it wasn't too bulky, Chen Yuyan originally planned to bring the Mk-19 automatic grenade launcher with him. In addition, each of the other soldiers has M-76 grenades hanging on their chests, and the assault rifle bullets used have also been transformed into blooming bullets. Therefore, in terms of firepower, among the various forces entering the research institute, their group is the most insane. This burst of fierce firepower made this G-virus mutated monster completely irresistible. After a series of explosions, it was finally overwhelmed, and its body was mutilated by the explosion. It collapsed to the ground like a pool of rotten meat. Nothing moves? Is it dead? Donald asked, frowning. Death is impossible. I have encountered a few mutant monsters of this kind in the city, and they will only sleep for a while. I'll go and have a look. Chen Yuyan said, not caring so much, and boldly when I came to the monster, I dialed it with the gun, and found that he was completely motionless, so I waved and said, hurry up. Let's go there. Donald nodded, and the American soldiers immediately ran towards the side. Not far behind the monster, there is a ladder leading to the top. Chen Yuyan held a grenade in his hand and stood by the monster at any time. If the monster woke up, he would give it the grenade immediately. But it didn't. A group of people went up the stairs, but the monster didn't wake up. Chen Yuyan was the last one to walk. Just as he was about to go up the stairs, he suddenly saw a dark figure standing silently in the sewer. There was a blur over there, and Chen Yuyan didn't see it clearly, but he knew that this figure was about 2 meters tall and extremely burly. Just as he was thinking, this black figure walked towards him step by step. After entering the lighting range of the tactical flashlight, Chen Yuyan was stunned. This black shadow is actually a stalker. Now the stalker has completely changed its appearance. Its right hand has disappeared, replaced by several flexible tentacles. Moreover, its chest also exploded from the inside out, its sharp ribs spread out like teeth, and huge pustules grew on its shoulders, making it look extremely disgusting. The trackers apparently also spotted Chen Yuyan, but instead of launching an attack, it walked towards the side step by step. Chen Yuyan, come up quickly. Donald greeted from above. Chen Yuyan didn't hesitate either, and went straight up the stairs, and sealed the stairs completely. Everyone continued to advance along the passage, and the soldier who checked the map before said, "Now we are still in the waste treatment area, and the experimental waste will be sent to the waste treatment plant after the initial loading here. Go to the experiment room, we have to go through the storage area up front." Chen Yuyan was just thinking about it all the time. Why did the tracker appear here? Could it be that, with its mutation, the implanted Ne-alpha parasite did not get out of control? If that's the case, then maybe things make sense. The program he and Four Eyes set for the trackers before is not to actively attack others, but to follow the U.S.S Delta team. Move in sequence. Then after the previous power station was captured, the survivors and experimenters all died or fled, and the zombies and B.O.W naturally would not attack the trackers. So it had nothing to do there, lost track of the Delta team, and went to the police station according to the established procedure. But although U.S.S and Echo number 6 are going there at the police station, there is Lei Chen in the U.S.S, and Yao Xiong, who is familiar with the plot, in the USS number 6 team. Naturally, they can quickly find the secret passage to the research institute. But there is no such secret passage in the trackers program. It goes to the police station, and naturally it can't see anything except countless zombies. So the only way to get to the research institute is through the entrance and exit in its program, that is, the entrance and exit from the waste treatment plant. As for how it got in, it definitely didn't go through the gate, it should have crawled along the huge wastewater pipe, that's why it appeared in the sewer. Then if it was true as he judged, and the tracker was nearby, he would have another hole card. They came all the way to the storage area, where the lighting was very dim, and many of the lights were broken, and the surrounding vision was very limited. Moreover, in the corner, zombies stood up from time to time, and the movement speed of the American soldiers slowed down a lot. Walking on the road, Chen Yuyan's heart was always heavy. From just now, he has always had a very bad feeling in his heart. It was as if there was an eye staring at them in the darkness. He slung an M-16 assault rifle from the supply box earlier on his back, drew his Gurkha saber, and took out his pistol in the other hand. In this place with limited vision, such a combination of weapons is more flexible. Sudden. A white shadow flashed past the corner of his eye. Accompanied by a burst of sinister laughter, he. Be careful. There are people here. Chen Yuyan yelled, and shone the tactical flashlight, but saw nothing. All US soldiers were also on guard immediately. They held tactical flashlights and shone around, forming a circular formation at the same time. Everyone focused on one direction. Someone was laughing just now. Donald said in a low voice, "It's too bad here. Let's go through as soon as possible and go to an open place." "Be careful, let's go." Chen Yuyan also agreed with his judgment. Who knew that just as they were about to move on, The American soldier who had been looking at Hansu suddenly realized something was wrong. He pulled Hansu and said, "What are you doing? Let's go." However, Hansu didn't respond at all. The soldier hurriedly shone the flashlight, and suddenly found that Hansu's throat had been cut open with a long wound, and countless blood spurted out. "He is dead." Seeing this scene, Donald's face turned livid. Someone actually killed a man under the noses of more than a dozen Delta Force soldiers. And no one found out? "Turn on the thermal imaging camera," Chen Yuyan said quickly. Not everyone was equipped with a thermal imaging camera, and the soldiers who had equipment immediately opened it and looked around. He, you have come to a place you shouldn't have come," the gloomy voice sounded again. At this moment, Chen Yuyan suddenly saw a figure in a white suit and his sharp eyes hidden under the sunglasses. Boom! Boom! Chen Yuyan fired immediately, but missed nothing. In the darkness, another soldier suddenly reacted subconsciously and blocked it with the assault rifle in his hand. There was only a crisp sound, followed by a flash of extreme coldness. With a plop, the soldier fell powerlessly, and had already turned into a corpse. Thanks to Yuan Zhongchun for the 200 starting point coins. Thanks for the reward of 100 starting coins in 08A. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 89. 89 Battle of Killers. Who is it? A soldier yelled loudly, raised his gun and shot. Da-da-da-da. The muzzle of the M-16 emitted a bright flame, and the light from the flare pierced the surrounding darkness, and the sparks created by the bullet hitting the wall also brought a beautiful end to the series of attacks, but it didn't hit any target. He, the voice in the darkness laughed again. The voice seemed to come from all directions, and it was completely impossible to distinguish the direction of the voice. The white figure flashed, followed by a puff, and one of the soldiers immediately let out a roar of extreme pain, only to see a scalpel pierced into his throat at some point until it had no handle. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Almost everyone fired at the same time, and countless bullets were fired in all directions. The invisible killer in the darkness is destroying their nerves all the time. 3 people had already died, but they couldn't even touch the corners of each other's clothes. This burst of random shooting seemed to have an effect. The man did not continue to attack, but kept laughing. Ha-ha's laughter was like a rusty blunt knife, cutting the nerves of everyone present. Chen Yuyan didn't fire, he just lowered his head, his hands holding the pistol and saber were naturally drooping but slightly opened. He's thinking, feeling. When he was undercover in his previous life, Big Boss also hired top killers and mercenaries to train them. When he came to the world of Resident Evil, in the training center of Umbrella Corporation, on Nuckford Island, Hank, the god of death, also trained him harshly. And one of the training contents is how to fight in a dark environment. Do not use a thermal imager when fighting against a master, because the chaotic heat will disturb the judgment at that moment. Also don't use night vision goggles, as that will make your field of view very narrow. All you can really trust are your eyes and your senses. As for why Chen Yuyan asked others to turn on the thermal imaging, because he understood at that moment that this opponent was definitely not something these American soldiers could deal with, they just needed to be restrained. This man is a master. It is absolutely impossible for the experimenters in the bronze group to silently kill 3 in front of more than 10 people. So, could this person be the 4th silver group powerhouse who has never shown up? Chen Yuyan began to adjust his breathing, keeping in mind the teaching of Hank, the god of death, no attack is flawless. A successful attack is always a combination of the attacker's mistakes and the attacker's grasp of the fleeting opportunity. Chen Yuyan thought that although there was a huge gap between himself and this killer hiding in the dark, he would definitely not be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. At least before the opponent's every attack, he could catch the ghostly white figure. "Put down your weapon and put on your dagger," Chen Yuyan said softly. Donald immediately understood his intentions. The opponent was obviously a very agile killer, and this storage area was full of small warehouse compartments and various shelves and containers piled up everywhere. If so, then there is a high possibility of accidentally injuring one's own people. "Arms down, daggers on," Captain Donald repeated, and all the soldiers obeyed at once. If it were ordinary soldiers, this order would be tantamount to making them commit suicide, but they are Delta Force. Is the elite of the army. Dagger fighting is just one of the countless killing methods they are good at. Chen Yuyan had already adjusted his breathing to be extremely slow, each inhalation and exhalation was very slow and long, and his senses became more and more acute, as if all the subtle sounds around him were amplified. He didn't notice it himself, but with his action, a green flash flashed in his eyes. "Struggling is useless, you will all die here," the gloomy voice came from all around again, and in the corner of Chen Yuyan's eyes, a white figure flashed past. "Too far." Chen Yuyan didn't move, but the soldiers over there also sensed the attack, and immediately rushed forward with daggers in hand. The chaotic fighting sound lasted less than 5 seconds, only a bang was heard, and a soldier fired a shot with a pistol, but it missed the target and hit another soldier. At the same time as the muffled groan sounded, a soldier on the other side had his throat cut open again. The formation of the American soldiers began to become a little confused, and the direction of the tactical flashlight was not so uniform, but began to shake. He, the cold laughter continued to echo, and the white figure appeared again. This time, Chen Yuyan saw it. It was a tall and thin man, he was wearing a white suit, a white top hat, and a pair of round sunglasses on his eyes strangely. His hands are long, his shoulders are broad, and his gloved palms are also very broad. It looks like a master who has practiced his skills to perfection. "The damned person is you!" Chen Yuyan yelled, and the Gurkha saber in his hand swept across with a sharp sound of wind. However, the tip of the knife did not return any force to hit the target, the laughter in the darkness remained the same, and the cold wind blew past Chen Yuyan, and he immediately used his hands to protect every vital point on his body. Swish! 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 The light of the knife, which was as subtle as a filament, slashed across, and Chen Yuyan's hands were instantly cut with more than a dozen wounds. What a quick move! The opponent left with one blow. Chen Yuyan followed closely, and shouted, "Cover me! Squeeze his space!" At the same time, he kept moving, and the Gurkha saber kept waving, pointing directly at the opponent's vitals. But this person's speed was so fast that Chen Yuyan's attack was one step behind each time. Boom! Chen Yuyan shot out the pistol, and the bullet hit the empty space on the left. At the same time, he swung his saber and slashed at the right side. When there is finally a power feedback from the Gurkha saber. Hit! The other party failed to escape. Only then did he realize that what supported his saber were two slender scalpels. Other US soldiers also approached, and they also understood that if the speed of the opponent was so fast, they should compress the space so that he would not have room to display his speed. He, look at what I found. A member of the U.S.S is actually with American soldiers. He, should I congratulate you for successfully breaking into the enemy's interior? The man sneered said. Donald's expression froze. Now that things have developed, he naturally knows what U.S.S is. That is the most elite special force under the Umbrella Corporation, a notorious existence. Chen Yuyan was not in a hurry to distinguish, he said sharply, killing the enemy in front of you is the most important thing. Don't let his killing continue. Donald immediately reacted and said loudly, get rid of this person, and talk about other things later. Chen Yuyan and the other party kept fighting, and under the flickering lights in the storage area, among the intricate boxes and compartments, two figures, one black and one white, appeared and disappeared with their movements. Until now, Chen Yuyan was mostly beaten, and there were more and more small wounds on his body. And his ability to force the opponent to fight him is already the limit. No one noticed that crouching on top of a box in a dark place was a man in a black combat uniform and a gas mask. This is U.S.S Alpha Squad, Hank reports. I found that Zero, a member of the U.S.S Delta team, was with American soldiers, and their opponent was company supervisor Holger Baker. The situation seems a bit complicated, please instruct. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 90. 90 Fierce Battle. Holger Baker? Are you sure he's in the Institute? Christine Henry, director of Umbrella's European division, was still on the communication side, and he asked eagerly. This answer was somewhat unexpected to Hanka. The senior management of Umbrella Company seemed to be completely indifferent to Chen Yuyan's affairs. Hanka continued, it can be confirmed that although he moves very fast, his clothing style is still very conspicuous. What do you mean by moving fast? Henry asked. Superhuman speed and fighting skills, Holger Beck's current strength is even higher than mine. Hanka replied. I understand. There was a pause on the other end of the communication, and then Henry's voice gradually became ferocious. Hank, I want you to kill Holger Beck. Immediately. How to deal with the G-virus sample and Zero who is now suspicious? Hank continued to ask. The matter of the Delta team will naturally be handled by someone. The recovery of the G-virus sample, the priority of this task is now down. Kill Holger Baker. This is the highest priority order. Don't let him touch the mainframe of the Research Institute. Henry gave the order firmly. Got it? Hank finished and cut off the communication. He continued to squat here watching the battle between Chen Yuyan and Holger Beck below. From his condescending angle, he could see that Chen Yuyan was struggling to resist Holger Baker's attack, while the American soldiers were trying to block the surrounding space as much as possible. But this is only the most ideal situation. The reality is that if the American soldiers want to block the space around Holger Beck, they must be dispersed. Once dispersed, they will be separated by Holger Beck one by one. Kill. Now 2 more soldiers have been killed, including the pilot who later flew the plane to drop supplies, and there are only 8 soldiers left over there. Hank untied the small bag containing the G-virus sample from his waist and put it in a hidden place nearby, then took off his gas mask, revealing his face full of vicissitudes and perseverance. At this time, his expression was very solemn, because Holger Beck could be said to be the only formidable enemy he had ever seen in his life. In the battle below, Chen Yuyan was also covered in blood, especially his hands were densely covered with wounds from the scalpel. He felt that the temperature of his hands began to drop, and the massive blood loss made his physical exertion extremely serious. Those American soldiers were hopeless, and he began to lure Holger Beck towards the sewer intentionally or unintentionally. Do you know? Originally, I planned to let you survive. Because you are really a good tool, you just need to complete the task well with the Delta team, and it is not difficult to survive. Holger, while Baker was fighting, he still had enough time to use words to stimulate Chen Yuyan's spirit, but, do you know? 80% of the accidental deaths that occur every year are due to unrealistic greed, just like you now, he. Holger Beck appeared from the darkness like a shadow. He picked up the blood-stained scalpel and licked it with his sharp tongue, tasting the delicacy of Chen Yuyan's blood. Chen Yuyan was silent, but just used both guns and knives, slashing towards Holger fiercely. But Holger still dodged his attack, and at the same time, the scalpel in his hand severely left a wound more than 10 centimeters long on his arm. As soon as the 2 sides separated, Holger raised his hand and threw 3 scalpels like lightning. The movement was done in one go. Chen Yuyan hurriedly used the Gurkha saber to parry, but Holger took the opportunity to bully him and kicked him hard in the stomach. Chen Yuyan was kicked several meters away by this kick, and rolled on the ground for a while, getting closer and closer to the entrance of the sewer. Holger threw 3 more scalpels, and Chen Yuyan kept rolling and dodging. At this moment, a figure suddenly descended from the sky, and the dagger in his hand stabbed at Holger with a cold light. Holger, who was about to pursue the attack, stopped instantly and backed away, just in time to avoid the blow. Just as he was preparing to counter-attack immediately as usual, he suddenly saw the pistol in the man's hand in front of him aiming at him. Boom! There was a gunshot, and almost at the same time, the comers fought against Holger Beck several times. The collision of dagger and scalpel, the collision of kick and kick. The sound rang several times in a row. Chen Yuyan immediately recognized Hank. He has no time to think about why Hank is here and why he will help him. Now he just understands that with Hank's joining, he is really sure to fight against this strong man in the silver group. He quickly took out a bottle of first aid spray and sprayed it on the wound. These medicines were taken from the supplies airdropped by the US military. Ironic, because the US military is using these umbrella drugs while attacking the company. Donald. You get out of here immediately. You can't help in this battle. Chen Yuyan shouted, picked up his saber and rushed up, and attacked Holger Baker with Hank from left to right. Strictly speaking, Chen Yuyan is Hank's student, and the cooperation between them is also very tacit. After this rush, at least intuitively, the number of collisions between the scalpel in Holger Beck's hand and their daggers and sabers has increased. Donald was already full of doubts in his heart, and Holger Beck had called Po Chen Yuyan a person before, which had already made him suspicious. And now there is another person wearing a combat uniform, and he is still a master. If it hadn't been for the fact that Chen Yuyan had rescued them several times before, he might have confirmed that Chen Yuyan was a spy and ordered the fire directly. Leave them alone. Let's retreat. Donald shouted loudly, and immediately led the remaining American soldiers to retreat in the direction of the research institute. And here, with Hank's help, Chen Yuyan is evenly matched with Holger Beck. The scalpel in the opponent's hand was extremely flexible, biting like 6 poisonous snakes. What's more troublesome is that Holger Beck seems to have a natural affinity for the dark. As long as he comes to a place where the light is not illuminated, his figure will become very blurred, even if he is wearing a white suit. Hidden in the darkness. Fortunately, Hank's combat experience is also extremely rich. With his stronger body and the protection of the company's special battle uniform, he continued to rampage, creating opportunities for Chen Yuyan. Moreover, his combat skills are not inferior to Holger Beck's. He uses a pistol to block the space, and then uses a dagger to launch a fatal blow, or vice versa. This skill is used by him to perfection. In fact, this is the so-called gunfighting technique, the realistic version of gunfighting technique. When the battle between masters and masters, when pistols no longer have a deadly deterrent, this is the only way to fight. If so, Chen Yuyan and Hanke joined forces, but they only drew with Holger Beck. What Hanke has never expected is that Holger Beck's body looks thin, but his strength is not weaker than him. This is the gap between ordinary people's perception of experimenters. Boom! Holger kicked Hank back fiercely, and then disappeared into the darkness in a flash. When 3 scalpels were thrown at Hank, his figure flowed in the darkness like a shadow, and he came instantly. When he came to Chen Yuyan's side, the smile on his face became ferocious, and the scalpel pierced Chen Yuyan's back. The sense of crisis that Chen Yuyan had cultivated for a long time saved his life. He turned sideways suddenly, and the scalpel pierced deeply into his shoulder. At the same time, Holger Beck's face changed, and he quickly distanced himself into the darkness while touching his throat. Boom! The sewer entrance on the side exploded suddenly, several tentacles stretched out, and then a huge figure came up.